watched Disney Channel for a very long time. And when I say that I watched Disney Channel, I mean that I actively consumed it. I watched every episode from every show, from Sweet Life of Zack and Cody in 2005 to The Last Dog with a Blog episode in 2015. Every season of Wizard of Waverly Place, Good Luck Charlie, Livin' Maddie, every DCOM, What the What Weekend, Monstober, and Fa La Holidays for over a decade. But what finally broke the camel's back and got me to quit watching Disney Channel cold turkey was a nightmarish show that premiered in 2016 called Bizaardvark. Well, that and Best Friends whenever, but mostly Bizaardvark. What is Bizaardvark? Well, it's a worse version of iCarly, a pale imitation, a knockoff that came 10 years too late. It was the series that made me finally realize that the golden age of Disney Channel was probably over and that I should spend more time on Netflix. Hello, my name is Lauren and welcome to the Theoretical YouTube channel where, yes, I know you clicked on a video about iCarly, but I wanted to start with talking about Bizaardvark because even then I knew that this was Disney's attempt to recreate the success of Nickelodeon's iCarly. I mean, both shows are about a pair of teenage girls who become famous online personalities by posting silly video-based content. But one became an iconic time capsule of internet culture and peak 2000s teen television, while the other featured Jake Paul as a main character for 2 seasons. Now there is a new iCarly reboot on the near horizon, and I sense that it is about to stumble into some of the same pitfalls that Bizaardvark ran into 5 years ago. But instead of another company stepping in to try and recreate the magic of iCarly, the original IP is now about to tarnish its own legacy. Because the idea of reviving iCarly is inherently flawed. And I like reboots. I like familiar characters in new settings or following up on unexplored storylines. I watched Sweet Life on Deck, Cory in the House, most of Bunk, the 3rd season of Ant Farm, and Sam and Cat. But I'm telling you that this new reboot of iCarly is destined to fail. And here's why. Reason number 1. Who is the show even for? Is this supposed to be a kids show, a family program, a nostalgia trip for people my age? And if you answered yes to all 3 of those options, I don't think you know how target demographics work. Because the original iCarly knew who it was going to connect to. Tweens. And it was part of a pantheon of Nick and Disney shows that all hit the exact same audience at the same time, using what I commonly refer to as the Disney Channel phenomenon. When looking at a piece of media and how it's successfully marketed, you have to consider 3 things: the creator, the audience, and the subject. For instance, Romeo and Juliet was written by William Shakespeare, a famous Elizabethan playwright who had already made a name for himself writing tragedies. And comedies, but tragedies for now. The play is about upper-class families and high melodrama in England. The audience going to see the play were also from Elizabethan England, had enough money to go see a play, and wanted high stakes. But there were also lower class audience members who wanted elements of the story that poked fun at the more wealthy patrons of society. So Shakespeare incorporated some of his own background, the desire for tragic and melodramatic storytelling, and the lowbrow humor that made him popular in the first place. So we see how the relationships between creator, audience, and subject begin to develop naturally. And we can do this with pretty much anything. Quentin Tarantino movies, Spanish soap operas, Disney Channel shows. The Disney Channel phenomenon has to do with how Disney Channel shows are marketed towards a younger audience. And it's a bit of a paradox because almost all of these shows are written by adults, featuring teenagers, but watched by younger kids. I was the exception when I was watching characters my own age on screen. But this idea also applies to the original iCarly. It was a television program created by adults, specifically the Dan Schneider production team, featuring high schoolers but watched by children and tweens. And we know this because of the audience-submitted clips that played during the credits of episodes in season 1. These were the fans of the show. And speaking from personal experience, the people that I know who grew up watching iCarly are now in college, which means that they were in elementary school when the show first premiered. It might have been on Teen Nick, but even that name is misleading because it's middle schoolers who are being advertised to. Middle schoolers are the ones who want to be considered cool because they watch teen content. When you were in high school, were you still watching teen branded entertainment, or did you want to appear more adult in your tastes? See? Paradox. No one wants to watch a show that's branded for their own age group unless they are an adult or a very young child.
So kick back with a pound of bacon and enjoy the show!
The Disney Channel phenomenon means that shows like iCarly were targeted towards tweens by featuring storylines about teens. Relatable content, but focused on experiences that most of the audience hasn't had yet. But this is what we'd want our high school to be like. It allows the show to be a little less realistic and take more liberties with logic to be more zany fun.
Random dancing!
But what's with this reboot? The story is now going to take place like 10 years after the conclusion of the original show, which means it can't benefit from the Disney Channel phenomenon. Which leads me to believe that the reboot is trying to target the original iCarly fans, the ones who are now also 10 years older. Which is odd, because that would require a huge tone shift from the original concept of the show, and means you can no longer rely on the lack of audience's experience to amp up the fun aspects. We, speaking as a 20-something-year-old, don't have the same aspirational relationships to television anymore. We already know the context of whatever challenges Carly, Freddie, and Spencer will face as adults who have to pay rent or college loans or whatever. We have less of a tolerance when it comes to suspending our disbelief when it comes to the creators stretching the limits of what a situation might be for a situational comedy.
Look, I've had a really tough day, which included jumping out of a cargo plane full of possums and wandering in the Japanese wilderness for 7 hours, so I
cannot share a room with this puppet.
Sir!
So this reboot either has to be more grounded than the original show, or risk being tonally deaf to how real adults behave. Plus, 10 years is both a long and a short time gap to fill. These characters will have clearly grown and matured since the last time we saw them, but we should still be able to recognize their personalities. It's like being introduced to a whole new cast with new backstories, but they also have an uncanny resemblance to the one we remember. And then there's the new characters, including Freddie's stepdaughter, who reads to me like a clear self-insert character for any younger audience member who does end up watching this reboot because they heard such great things about the original. So, this show is trying to be a lot of things. Certainly nostalgic, and an entrance for new fans, but it's probably not going to find a strong audience in either camp because it can't fall back on the success of similar shows around it. Part of the reason Nick shows and Disney Channel shows did so well is that they are similar enough to each other that there's a lot of fan crossover, and literal character crossover in some cases.
Lost in the moment you disappear. It's all for real.
But this new iCarly doesn't have any comparative titles to speak of. Nothing else on Paramount Plus is cohesive enough to be advertised beside it. And unless you're a die-hard SpongeBob or Star Trek fan, you probably don't even have this service. Reason number 2. I'm not even sure iCarly would work today. The internet is simultaneously more complicated and more accessible than it was in 2007 when the very first iCarly episode premiered. And this is where the comparisons to Bizarrevark will come in handy. But first, what actually was iCarly, the web show that the TV show is about? Well, the TV show was about a girl named Carly Shay and her best friend Sam Puckett who started a live webcast with their other friend Freddie Benson called iCarly.
I'm Sam. I'm Carly. And this is iCarly.
the only web show that makes you laugh and prevents heart disease.
iCarly was a live web show that was broadcast from an independent site called iCarly.com. And from here on out, if I say iCarly.com, I'm referring to the web show. It had regular viewership ranging from 30,000 to 50,000 viewers per episode. That is shockingly high. I also couldn't find any information about how often they streamed, but I seem to remember it being once a week. If you know the real answer to that, please feel free to correct me. Other social media sites in this world include Splashface, which is where the original videos that Freddie posted of Carly and Sam went viral. But this is not where the web show was streamed from. Once again, iCarly.com was an independent domain name. Okay, so the first episode of iCarly premiered in 2007. YouTube was founded in 2005 and bought by Google in 2006. So you can probably see why a TV show about online internet personalities was so popular and resonant during a time when online video sharing was experiencing a massive upturn in mainstream popularity. Like, iCarly predates Nyan Cat by 4 years. But iCarly was not a show about YouTubers. For one thing, iCarly.com was a live webcast. And YouTube wouldn't allow most verified account holders to stream from their channels until 2013, a full year after iCarly had already been off the air. iCarly also predates Twitch streaming, which started around 2011 as a spin-off to the service DESTINED.tv, which was also a site that allowed users to broadcast from their channels. Justin.tv went online in 2007, just 6 months before the first episode of iCarly. All of this is to say that the concept of a live webcast run by teenagers out of a Seattle loft was a novel idea at the time, if not outright innovative. There weren't really any TV shows about internet personalities yet, and even online, there wasn't anything exactly like this. Some of the biggest channels on YouTube at the time were Smosh, Niga Higa, Lonely Girl 15, and Fred.
You just had to trash talk Fred.
I didn't trash talk him.
Out of these, iCarly was probably most similar to Smosh and Niga Higa in the fact that they were producing primarily comedy skits and such. Except iCarly was more of a variety show rather than a sketch show, so it probably has more in common with the likes of Good Mythical Morning today. Of course, it helps to keep in mind that this was still 2007, and the main pull of iCarly was that it was live and performed by teenagers. But like I said, now the internet is more accessible. There are sites like YouTube and Twitch that allow anybody with a camera to start a live stream. Any kid could make iCarly. Maybe not as well produced, but functionally the exact same show. The bar to entry is just a lot lower. And there is less of an appeal to watch a show about something that you could clearly do yourself. It's an alright concept, but less novel. The other thing that I mentioned is that the internet is more complicated now, which, like, sure, obviously. But what I meant is that in order to make iCarly.com as successful as it was, nowadays Carly and her friends probably would have gone about production quite differently.
Wait a minute! Nobody mentioned ketchup at the creative meeting!
Which is why Bizaardvark was such a strange show. Okay, so Bizaardvark was a TV show about two teenage girls named Paige and Frankie who upload videos to a video sharing site called Vuggle. Vuggle? I haven't seen an episode in 5 years. Because their channel hit 10,000 subscribers, Paige and Frankie were invited by Vuggle Studios to be featured creators on the site and work at Vuggle Studios. This channel has 3,000 subscribers. Please help us have more subscribers than Bizaardvark. At Vuggle, they meet other creators who have massive subscriber counts and specialize their channels around stuff like beauty and fashion, and one that takes dares from their audience. You can guess where Jake Paul fits into all this.
Here we go!
But let's take a pause for a second, because do you see what I'm getting at here? Just the setup for Bizaardvark is needlessly more complicated than iCarly. The basic concept is the same. Two girls make funny online videos and get famous. But the execution is messy and tries to incorporate aspects of services like YouTube that make the production of internet videos less fun. Like in season 3, they move into the equivalent of a clout house. And if you somehow don't believe that Bugle is supposed to be an analogous site to YouTube, let me read you some of the guest stars on the show. Jojo Siwa, Logan Paul, Lily Singh, Rosanna Pansino, Thomas Sanders, Steve Zaragoza, and Grumpy Cat. And those were the names I recognized at first glance. And they're all from season 1. But I have 2 more examples of how Bizaardvark was weirdly complicated, and the first is the role of Bernie. Bernie is a lot like Freddy in iCarly on the basis that he is associated with the girls' internet show, but only behind the scenes.
Hey, look, I'm in your shot. Turn the camera back on the stars, would ya?
But whereas Freddy was a technical producer who ran the camera, sound, and equipment side of the show,
You see, Freddy,
Our technical weenie. Producer!
Bernie is a talent manager, which reflects what I was saying earlier about accessibility. Now anyone could prop up an iPhone camera.
Set up the lights, audio, work the camera. Aww, he wants to be our geek.
There's no need for a technical producer on a show like Bizaardvark, which leaves Bernie with the business side of being internet famous, which is boring. Right? Like, you kind of suck all the life out of a character when you make their sole role on the team negotiating contracts. But the other thing that sets Bizaardvark apart from iCarly is that they aren't an independent website. And Bugle does function a bit like YouTube in the sense that creators have channels that have their own subscribers. But Bugle Studios also kinda functions like an MCN. Or multi-channel network. If you don't know, an MCN is a third-party company that owns several YouTube channels in a network together. In exchange for a portion of each channel's revenue, an MCN offers services such as assistance in getting a channel monetized, cross-channel promotions, and partner management. I'd say supposedly because most of them are kind of scams, and a ton of MCNs collapsed a few years ago, disrupting a huge portion of the YouTube community. It was really bad, and a lot more complicated than iCarly.com, which was one show on one website, and again, independently owned. The last thing that I'll say about the internet now versus in 2007 is that there is just so much more being uploaded every single day. In a time when iCarly.com was an original idea, it probably would have done really well online because there was nothing else like it. But now there are millions of things to watch online, all catered to an audience's hypothetical viewing habits. You like engineering? Watch channels that do that. You like beauty tips? Watch channels that specialize in that. You like Minecraft? Well, good news. There are hours and hours of Let's Plays, which are different than speedruns, which are different than whatever the Dream SMP is. You like Disney and Harry Potter theories? You watch this channel! And probably a few others. A few more popular others. Even if you like comedy, iCarly probably would have been just another show on a rotation that you tune into every week. Also, I'm just saying, since we already discussed iCarly's target demographic, the show would have been absolutely destroyed by the COPPA laws that got revamped in 2020. Bet you all forgot about that because the pandemic ended the world and everything. But remember all that drama? All of this is to say that I'm not sure iCarly or iCarly.com would be nearly as popular today as it was in 2007. Because the internet itself is a very different place. Reason number 3. iCarly is a television show, obviously, but this ties back into what I was saying quite a few minutes ago. Let's say you're in middle school. You come home from a long day of classes and you're looking to unwind with some television before you start your homework. But wait, do your parents even still pay for cable? Let's say they do, but are you really gonna watch something live when you could stream literally anything online. But okay, you've binged everything on Netflix, and you're bored with Disney Plus or HBO Max or whatever other streaming service your family gets a bill for every month. All your friends are at sports practice or something, so no one's texting on Snapchat or Discord. And let's say that you saw an ad for this iCarly reboot on Twitter or something, so you decide to give it a try. Obstacle number 1, it's on Paramount Plus, a streaming service that literally no one has. I'm honestly curious, do more people have Discovery Plus or Paramount Plus? Obstacle number 2, Paramount Plus is behind a paywall. Not an extremely high one, but still $5 or $6 a month. And it's probably not worth splurging over a whole month's allowance on something that you don't even know if you'll like yet. Obstacle number 3, the show's about a web show, right? Why don't you just hop on YouTube and watch a real web show for free? The iCarly reboot is hindered by the fact that it will be a television program about a medium of content that almost everyone on Earth can access right now for free. And literally everyone if they have Wi-Fi, subtitles, and a VPN. And not only will it be behind a little paywall, it's also scripted and performed by actors instead of content creators. There is an unavoidable layer of inauthenticity between this show and its audience simply on the basis that it is a television show and not, for lack of a better word, real. If I started a webcast right now, you would probably be more invested in my life because I am a real person. Even if I was acting. Even if I was using a fake name for the last 4 years. But because the contextual framing of a YouTube video feels more authentic than the construct of a television show, I feel more real than Carly Shay. Right? You believe I exist, don't you? But have you ever in your life really believed that the characters in iCarly were walking around the streets of Seattle, getting hit by fish at Pike's Place, going to a Seahawks game, visiting the Fremont Troll? Probably not, because you recognize Miranda Cosgrove and understand the concept of television. This iCarly reboot is destined to fail. I'm sure people will watch it. I'm sure it will have fans, but I am pretty darn confident that it will never have the cultural relevance of the original show, be considered a perfect time capsule of internet culture, or introduce a new generation of fans to these characters. It is just another reboot. Nothing more. Hello, if you liked this video, please do all the things that you couldn't do on iCarly.com. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment in the section down below. Okay, technically their website did have a comment section, but you know what I mean. You can follow us on Twitter at theory_central to read all of my inner thoughts. They are boring, but I admit they are mine. You can also support us on Patreon if you want to be the first person to support us on Patreon. But that is all of my thoughts and very strong opinions about iCarly. So thanks for watching. Don't worry, I am a real person. I'm pretty sure, and we'll see you later.
Humiliation!